As you can see, the pivot table in this training video is different from the one in the previous because I tweaked it, as I want to show you some customization options with your pivot table. First off, when you have a cell selected in the pivot table, you can see the field list over to the right. When you click outside of it, it disappears. Go ahead and click back in it, and you can see it again, unless of course you came over here and closed out of it. But with the cell selected in the pivot table, you can bring it up by coming up here to its related contextual analyze tab. Go to the show group, click on it, and there it is. Select it, and it brings it up. Oh, also, if you want to get rid of these ShowHide Collapse buttons, so you can click on it to collapse, click on it to expand it. I say get rid of it, but hide it temporarily. Click on the drop-down arrow for show, and deselect it, and they're hidden. Bring it back, select it again, they're back. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're working on the data that this pivot table is based upon, or somebody else is because maybe you're sharing the workbook, like if I go to sheet 1 because it's based upon the data here, for example, the date, you can see up here in the formula bar for all the cells is in 2008. If I change that by Control F and say I want to find 2008 and replace it with 2016, and click on Replace All, 108 replacements were made, click Okie dokie, close out. There we go, 2016. That when I go back to the sheet here, that I come up here and click on the date, it's still showing 2008. So you want to keep that in mind because what you need to do, let's click Cancel, is to come up here, click on the Analyze tab, go to the Data group and click on Refresh. And then click on the drop-down arrow. Hey, now it's 2016. Another feature that you may find helpful is that you can group your labels together. So I want all the A's together, the B's, the C's, the M's to do an index. To do that, go ahead and click and drag to select those that you want to group, like the mirror and mountain under the letter M group. Or you can go ahead and select one, hold down the Control key and Control click and select multiple labels. Or click off and select one here and come up here and do collapse. And then that makes it easier to go ahead and click and drag, or to do Control click. Well, that is if you want to skip one. But in this example, they're going to be consecutive because I want to group everything that begins with the letter M under the index M group. And so before I do that, let me go ahead and expand these again. And we'll just click and drag Mirror Lake down to Mountain Camping. Come up here on the Analyze tab to the group and click on Group to Group Selection. And there you go. It's got a generic name for my two labels, those that are categorized under Mirror Lake Sports and Mountain Camping. But what about the others? It also put them into groups as well. And the reason being is because it wouldn't work right as far as one being grouped and the others not moving over to show some structure in it. You know how you've got the indent or the hierarchical structure, you have it on the outside and that goes in. How would that work if this was out? Kind of look confusing. So when you group one, it groups all of them. But no worries. If you want to go ahead and continue your grouping, like let's say All Weather Sports, which is the group name for All Weather Sports, because it duplicates the name, and let's say that it's All Family Campers, so we want to group both All Weather Sports and All Family Campers under the index of A. Go ahead and select those two group labels for that group, and then come up here, click on Group to Group Selection, and then it reorganizes it and it says, okay, you guys don't have separate groups anymore. We'll just take All Weather Sports and, well, it says Family Campers, but we're pretending it's All Family Campers under Group 2. Now to go ahead and ungroup it, select the group label. And if you don't have the undo, you can click on Group to Ungroup, and we're back to where we started there. So the duplicate name for the company is All Weather Sports. Now to go ahead and rename these, so we have the letter A as the index for all the A's, and F for all the F's, and so on. Go ahead and come up here in the formula bar, and let's delete everything but the A, and hit Enter. Family Campers, delete everything but the F. And then the generic name, Group 1. Well, we'll delete that and say M, hit Enter, and then scroll down, Scouting, delete everything but the S, hit Enter. Now what's interesting is that we have our labels here for the company, which is All Weather Sports. You can see in the pop-up when I hover over it, it says Company, or come up here on the Analyze tab in the Active Field group, it's Company. But when you select the group label for that, you can see in the pop-up it's Company 2. So it's a duplicate of Company, so Excel just said, what's a quick name for it? Let's just call it Company 2. Instead, we can call it my index. So if you want to rename it, you can either, with it selected, come up here and rename it, or come over here, and there it is, Company 2. click on the drop down arrow and go to Field Settings. The source name is Company 2, but my custom name, delete it, will be my index, and then hit Enter. And there you go. Now it's updated to index. Also with it selected up here, it's also known as index, or my custom field name. Next, we can add some custom calculation fields, either for a group or outside of the group. And there's a disclaimer for the group. So for example, if I want to add a custom calculation for the group, go ahead and right-click on a group label or the index label, as I gave it the custom name index, and go down to Field Settings. Let me click and drag this up. The source name, the original name is Company 2 and my custom name. And select Custom and say that we want to do a count. When I go ahead and select that and click Okie dokie, it's going to count up, not the total number that it has shown here, but it's going to count up the total number for all weather sports. So if I go back to my sheet 1 for all weather sports, it's counting up the total quantity here, the cells that contain numbers for all weather sports. So you can see all weather sports goes down to row 14, so I have it selected over here. Then when you come down here and look on the status bar, there's the total count number 13, and that's what we see here, 13. So keep that in mind. If you do it by group, it's not what you see here. It's what's coming from your data sheet that the pivot table is based upon. And so let's go ahead and remove that. I can just right-click on it, go back down to Field Settings and say None, and click OK. Removes it. Next, I want to show you how you can add a custom calculation field. Like we've got the quantity, multiply it by the price each, which we have over here. We also have the total, but let's say we don't have the total field, and you want to create a calculated field that multiplies the price by the quantity sold. Then let's go ahead and come up here, click on the Analyze tab, go to the Calculations group, click on Field Items and Sets, and go down to Insert Calculated Field. And we can call the name of this field Total, although I don't recommend it because we already have a field that's called Total. And so maybe we'll just call it Totals. And notice that when I go back and I try to name it as the same field that I already have in my database in the pivot table it's coming over, it doesn't allow me to add it until I actually choose a different name. And then for the formula, let's go ahead and say that we want to take the price of each product, double click on it, and multiply it. So we have to type in the asterisk to add it up above. The asterisk is the symbol for multiplication by the quantity. Double click on that. Cool. Go ahead and click Okie dokie. And there we go. There's the total of quantity times the price of each product. Now let's go ahead and check this out. Let's add the price each here. Of course, it adds it over to the right. I want to rearrange that and have it come before the sum of totals, which if I don't like that name, we know how to rename it. But we're looking over here in the values quadrant, and you can see the sum of totals. Let's go ahead and click and drag that down so it comes over to the right. So it's at the low end. The high end is sum of quantity, the sum of the price each, and the sum of the total of the price and the quantity. And let's see if it checks out. What is 19 times 4? Is that 76? Well, select a cell equals 19 asterisk 4, hit enter, 76. Yeah, that checks out. Now, in addition to this, the calculated field, you can actually get subtotals and grand totals by coming up here and clicking on the Design tab, going to the Layout group, click on Subtotals, and let's go to Show Subtotals at the bottom of the group as opposed to the top. Select it, and let's see if it checks out. So for the group, we got the subtotal of 141 for A's. Those are the same except for the M's. We have 2 within that group. So there's the subtotal for mountain camping, subtotal for mountain lake sports, and when I control click to select both, does it equal 328 down below in the status bar? Yes, it checks out. Awesome. So subtotals to not show the subtotals. How about the grand total? Well, you can see I already got it, but if I click on the drop down arrow, I can say let's go ahead and go off for rows and columns, or in this case just for rows only. Removes it. And don't forget, you've got your styles that you can come up here on the Design tab, your pivot table styles. Click on the More option and find something that really works for you. Pivot style medium 2. Let's go ahead and select that. That kind of pops out, looks nice. Now if you want to prepare this to print off, there's a couple things that I would change, and maybe you do the same. First off, is that if you want some spacing in between your data here, you can come up here on the Design tab to the Layout group and click on Blank Rows, and you can insert a blank line after each item. Select that, and there's the first item, there's a blank row, next item, blank row. Looks kind of nice. And how about these filters? When you print it off, nobody's really going to know, the salesperson, that you filtered it for unless of course when you print it off it says all, so that way you don't have to worry about it, in which case why even display it. So to get rid of it, you can come down below over to the field list and just click and drag salesperson off, click and drag date off. It's cleaning it up more. And then what about the field header, the row labels? Do we really need to see that? No. To take that off, let's come up here and click on the Analyze tab. And then come over here, click on the Show, and deselect Field Headers, and it removes it. So that way, it's cleaned up, at least for me. Except I may want to go ahead and rename these. Instead of the sum of price each, you can just say the price of each and also change the numbers here so it's in currency. And you know how to do all that just by coming over here for the sum of price each. Click on the drop down arrow, go to value field settings, change the number format, go ahead and select currency, click okie dokie. There's the source name, and then the custom name is the sum of price each. You can just say, actually, let's just do the price and click okie dokie. There we go. In dollar format, the name of it, price. That looks a lot cleaner, doesn't it? In any case, that's a lot of work. I'm not going to do it all for you, but show you how you can do it. And then let's go backstage file, down to print. And there it is. Go ahead and click on it to zoom in. And one last thing, let me go ahead and hit back. You can use the get pivot table function that allows you to pull out data from the table if you want to reorganize it into a separate area. So for example, if you like some of the data here, hit equals, and then go ahead and select a cell within it, and you can see it automatically opens up the get pivot data function, and it tells you where it's pulling it from. Hit enter, and it pulls over the number 475 fanny packs, and that's for family campers. So you can actually extract data from it, and then go ahead and give it a label, type in a name from it, and create your own mini database based upon what's over here. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.